Hi everybody, this is Maha Al-Musa and I'm here today to continue reading to you a chapter from my book, Dance of the Womb. My book is an award-winning world first book that I released in 2008 when I was 46 and pregnant with my daughter Amina. So I'll just wait a moment to see who's there. So if you've just joined, I'm reading from my book, Dance of the Womb. And today I want to read a chapter entitled Belly Dance for Birth. What of the implementation of the belly dance as a birthing dance? And this is a question that many people have, and they ask me often, is belly dance and birthing related? And I wanted to express what I found out through my research in writing my book, Dance of the Womb, on this topic, and then how we can use the belly dance movements in birthing, using the belly dance movements as a birthing dance to embody birth. It is a pathway to how we can embody birth, to be fully present and engaged in our bodies for birthing. So I'd like to start with the chapter Belly Dance for Birth. Belly dance for birth is a term I have used to describe the movements of the belly dance for their function as a birth dance. It is a safe and effective dance expression that supports women throughout pregnancy and labour, providing a natural birthing technique that encourages and promotes active birth. With my profound experience of belly dance for birth, I can no longer contain the ripe womb of knowledge and feelings I have toward its implementation. I feel strongly to share my appreciation of its art with all women today and wish to promote the idea of active birth at its most feminine, that is, using belly dance for birth Arabic style, from my cultural roots, the dance of the womb, the dance of the feminine. Middle Eastern dance has evolved over time and traversed many lands from India to Greece, from the Pacific Islands to the Middle East. It has been labelled, restructured, extended, and fused with other dance styles. No doubt it would have served different functions in ancient times, whether as a ritual for reproduction, birth, or celebration. Predominantly as a woman's dance, it would have been passed from mother to daughter through verbal, oral, as well as physical means to preserve its sacredness and honour its connection to birth and fertility. And this is something that I talk about in my Embody Birth training, is that as I dance with my daughter, I teach her the rhythms and movements of birthing, not through technique, not through instruction, but through that heart-to-heart, womb-to-womb connection. And as we dance together, as she dances into her womb space and into her body, she is instinctively connecting to the movements of birth. This is why it's very, very important that women have access to this knowledge of how to embody birth through the belly dance movements that I have been teaching now for 20 years to both pregnant women and birth professionals in my teacher training. So the one factor that has not changed over time from ancient times, and I do believe this, is that Middle Eastern dance, and especially belly dance for birth, is a unifying dance of the feminine. And this is where we need to come to in childbirth education. We need to be educating women from the feminine aspect, which essentially is getting out of our heads and into our hearts, into our wombs, into our pelvis, and connecting with our babies. And through dance and the movements of belly dancing, the feminine movements, that is how we connect and engage with our bodies for birthing. So it is a dance of the feminine, a dance of the womb. Still, it has not been an easy task to source authentic written information on the belly dance per se, let alone belly dancing as a birthing dance, especially from Arab countries. And let's not forget that the Arab world is many, many countries, dialects and traditions. So it hasn't been easy when I researched my book to find stories from Arab women's perspectives, such as this one. In a London clinic frequented by Saudi Arabian women, the tradition of childbirth as a shared event continues even now, when women giving birth cry out in pain, and her friends are around her, who are with her in the room, they set up a sympathetic lament in echo of her cries. And we talk about this in my Embody Birth workshop as well, that the women used to circle around the labouring woman, and it was like they energetically held her in that space. And when she cried out, they too would move and make sounds with her and hold her and connect with her, so she never felt she was alone. And I often say, wouldn't it be beautiful if we had midwives and doulas whilst we were in labour, moving with us, dancing with us, being in their own bodies. To be with woman means to be with your own woman, asking, how do I navigate my feminine in the world? How am I with the woman in myself? Because to be with woman, to truly be with woman, I need to be with my own woman. I need to be connected to the feminine within me. And I need to inquire, how does that look and feel to me when I'm with other women in labour? So this is a very important consideration as a birth professional. And I wondered why there was very little cultural documentation of Middle Eastern dance actually written by Arab women themselves. My personal belief is that this fundamental information is shrouded by the mystery of the dance as an ancient sacred rite, a dance innately programmed into women's bodies, and thus its movements have not needed to be formally structured in Middle Eastern dance, in Middle Eastern culture. Being a dance that is inherent, meaning that it speaks to women as a natural element of her cyclic life. And this was beautifully expressed by Tunisian performer Layla Haddad, who said, as soon as we come out of our mother's belly, we dance. It's part of our everyday life. Everyone is a dancer at heart. And I have many women asking me about coming to train with me in Embody Birth. And they are tentative and say, I don't know if I can teach dance. I'm not a very good dancer. And I say to them, do you have a heartbeat? Yes, of course. And so I say, then you are a dancer. Listen to the rhythm of your heart and dance from your heart and follow the rhythm of your heart. This is where dance emanates, and this is where we connect as women in the circle of sisterhood through that heart space. So don't ever be afraid. You know how to dance. It is part of our human experience, and especially a part of our feminine experience, and especially for birthing. So essentially, the cultural dance has only been chronicled over time by its natural evolution through oral, visual, and practical methods. If ever categorization and labeling of Middle Eastern dance is formally documented, then it must be done with a sensitivity and respect to culture, rather than just through academic and technical instruction. Thanks, Jody. Connection to the dance should communicate an empathy based on nature, feelings, and spirit. And isn't this the same for birthing? This is how we need to connect, through feelings, through the spiritual aspect of birth. And in turn, this creates the setting for deeper spiritual understanding, an essential component of gratitude toward cultural identity and to birth, to honour women for birth. In Middle Eastern society, it was not unusual for women to perform the dance as part of a ceremony worshipping women for their life-giving powers. How incredible it is, as women, we get the opportunity to carry life within us and to birth that life to the world as a gift to the world. This is our spiritual path as women. Never forget that. Birth has become clinical and sanitized, and it is an experience of a spiritual rite of passage for women, a journey that excavates down into the depths of who we are. And that aspect of who we are is what we birth with our babies to the world, to elevate consciousness on this planet. That to me is what birth is all about. I have asked many questions in relation to Middle Eastern dance in its cultural context, both as a dance and as a birth dance. And some of the questions I've asked have been, do contemporary Arab women utilize the movements in pregnancy and labor today? What has influenced the nature of the birthing dance over time? How much have Arab women been influenced by Western perception and ideals in relation to their native dance? And we all know that belly dancing has been taken into the aspect of it being a cabaret dance, a dance for the audience. Most people see it as a dance that's done in a restaurant. And that has its validity, of course. And what I'm presenting is another aspect of Middle Eastern dance, which is the dance for birth. And it's a very, very valuable way in which to embody birth, especially in the first stage of labor, when the cervix is thinning and dilating. The movements of the belly dance will aid the cervical dilation, and I will talk more about that. And we learn more about that in my Embody Birth Teacher Training program. Some older Arab women I have spoken to nod enthusiastically when I speak of Middle Eastern birth dance, while others seem intrigued that the dance has its roots in birthing. Once I have explained the articulation of the dance in reference to birth, these same women slowly nod and smile. It is as though they carry a knowing, a recognition, something deep and primal, emanating from the eyes of the soul, acknowledging that the birth dance bears this profound implementation. The beautiful aspect of the belly dance that I have experienced and appreciated whilst dancing with other Arab women and family in my homeland when I've been back to visit the Middle East when I was younger is simply the natural way in which they express the dance. Little girls grow up learning to imitate their mothers at informal parties, dancing by moving their hips and arms in subtle, lyrical, and playful ways, which is what I spoke about earlier. And that is also from Wendy Bonventura's book, Beauty and the East. Whatever gatherings I have attended and whoever's house I have danced in, the women seem to just have a natural, innate connection to the music and the pleasure of belly dancing, or this dance of the womb. Personally, I have never felt shy or self-conscious amongst this uplifting atmosphere, and always reveled in the smiles, laughter, and hip-to-hip connections we make, always feeling the same natural flow as part of my own experience as an Arab woman. It is from this joyful, pure source that I facilitate my Embody Birth and Belly Dance Birth classes and encourage other women to dance from this radiant center that we all carry around our navel in our womb space, whether pregnant or not. For me, the heart is my center in belly dancing, so I encourage you always to dance from your heart. It seems that in our 21st century modern world, many women have become estranged from their primal birthing brain and the knowledge that lies within it. Now, this is really, really important, and we talk about this in my Embody Birth training. And I say this, the baby doesn't come out of your head. The baby comes out of your vagina. You need to get out of your head, out of the thinking neocortex, and come down, down, down into your pelvis, into your womb, into that primal brain essence or field for birthing. And women too often hand their power over to the medical world long before they enter labor and have the idea that someone else will be doing this for them. And this also includes women from, modern Middle Eastern culture, and now all over the world, women are handing their power over. And as I've mentioned before, I never like to use the word empowered, because to me that indicates that I have the power and you don't have power. I would rather use the word inspire. I want to inspire you to find that dance of birth and the inner innate knowing of birth, that map of birth within you. It is there. It is within all of us. And that is whether you've had children or not. That blueprint of birth is in you. Never forget that. And so when we choose to embrace the medical profession's notion of birth first and foremost, that gives more or less credence to Indigenous birthing practices. And my friend Faiza supported this notion in her observation of Egyptian modernity, acknowledging the move towards more medical-orientated births. She said that both urban and rural women in Egypt today are more inclined to birth in a hospital, as home birthing is becoming viewed as a primitive practice, which is very, very sad. Because birth is a primitive practice. We need to engage our primal primitive brain for birth. Michelle O'Donnell talks about this a lot. So it seems strange that it's old world. Birth hasn't changed. In order to give birth, we need to shut off that rational brain and get into that primitive, raw, wild part of ourselves. That's not the clinical side. That's the natural essence that we have as women for birthing. And to turn one's back on that is very sad. And that is what's happening to women. We think that it's wrong to be in the primal aspect of our birthing selves. It seems in countries all over the world, we are somehow being manipulated to lose trust in our essential birthing wisdom. And that is what my program is doing. It's bringing birth back to women, to their heart, their hand, their wombs, their babies, their innate knowing. And we embody birth using these belly dance birth movements. On another interesting note, Sarah, my midwife, who attended my second son's birth, Tariq, in 1999, and she's been interviewed for my book, lived and worked in a maternity hospital in Saudi Arabia in 2003, both in the labour ward and with doctors and midwives developing antenatal programs. And she's always been a wonderful advocate and support of my work, knowing the passion I have for bringing women back to conscious birth through the belly dance, through embodying birth. And I spoke with her about whether the Arab women she attended in the Saudi Arabian hospitals used the belly dance movements during births and whether they still danced in the home. And she told me that women danced on many social occasions at home and at weddings without inhibition, amongst themselves only. And this type of social dance is a very normal practice. But when these same women came to the hospital to birth their babies, now this is interesting, the presence of the male doctor in the room did not allow for this same exuberance and public display of the dance, and required them to remain concealed underneath their abaya or their veil. She said that the mothers of these younger girls were more inclined to follow the medical model and see the doctors as the experts, as their daughters birthed usually on the bed and underneath the hospital sheets with great modesty. They would encourage them to get through the contractions, or as I like to say, expansions, as best they could. Biting hands was a common pain relief during these contractions. She did say, however, that in observing the birthing women who did get off the bed and get into active labour, she saw that they would remain hidden under the abaya, but still they would be moving their pelvis. Hearing Sarah tell me about her experiences and some of the changes to traditional birth practices, I was pleased to know that the women, despite being veiled and around the male doctors, engaged in the belly dance birth instinctive movements of their cultural dance. Sarah also further promoted the belly dance as a prenatal exercise in the context of pregnancy and birth, which was a positive way of giving the women permission to explore this cultural traditional practice again in the birthing arena. I was also glad to hear that although maternity wards were becoming more and more clinical, the notion of women attending women was highly encouraged. Not all is lost. So I see we have found another important reason for all birthing light workers or all birth workers across the globe to continue making waves by bringing all birthing women back home. So I'm going to stop there and continue on in this chapter another time. And I yeah, just wanted to bring you into an understanding of how we can use the ancient movements of the belly dancing to embody birth. And I want you to remember that these movements of the belly dancing are intuitive, instinctive birth movements, and they are within every woman. Okay, they reside. That map of birth is within you. The movements are like a compass to guide you into the womb space so you can access and activate that birthing, or the codes of birth. So these movements are not difficult. In fact, if we start just with the basic circle movement, then we can move into these rhythmic sensations of birth using the basic circle movement. And this is a beautiful hypnotic and meditative movement, and it is the first and most foundational movement of my Embody Birth program using belly dance birth. So if there's any movement that you want to engage with and open into the body, it is the circle movement. And you can find all of these movements on my DVD, Dance of the Womb. So all of the movements in the book are on my DVD. And again, if anyone is interested in joining me for my Embody Birth 4-day teacher training to become a certified Embody Birth teacher using the belly dance birth movements, as well as somatic sacred processes to bring women into an awareness of their body with their baby, then I'd love you to get in touch with me. And my website is www.mahaalmusa.com, and I'll leave that in the details of this video for you. So I wish you to pass on this information to women and let them know that their body knows how to give birth. Their body knows how to give birth. And when they come into that primal, instinctual space of birthing and use these beautiful meditative, hypnotic movements, and we add sound and breath to the movement, they don't need anything else. They don't need to be told how to give birth. All they need to do is create that space within the body to listen to the body, and the body will speak. And that is how we dance the dance of birth, the dance of the feminine, the dance of the womb. Thank you, everybody. I was reading from my book, Dance of the Womb. Have a wonderful day. Namaste.